Frogs are fascinating creatures that can be found all over the world. They come in a wide variety of colors and sizes, and they're known for their ability to jump long distances. But did you know that frogs can also change the sex of their offspring? That's right. Some species of frogs can determine the sex of their eggs, and they do it by calling. Eggs. And they do it by calling. You heard me right. Male frogs typically make a wide range of sounds to attract females and warn off other males. These sounds, known as frog calls, are produced by the male frog by forcing air out of his body through his vocal cords. The resulting sound can be anything from a low croak to a high-pitched squeak. The call is often species-specific and can be used to attract mates or defend territory. The sound is made when the male frog forces air out of his body through his vocal cords. The resulting sound can be anything from a low croak to a high-pitched squeak. The call is often species-specific and can be used to attract mates or defend territory. And these calls are not just random noises, they're actually chemical signals that the frogs are sending to each other. The calls contain information about the size and quality of the caller, and they're a way for the frogs to communicate without having to physically meet. In some cases, female frogs will respond to male frog calls with their own calls, which can be used to either accept or reject the advances of the male. But frog calls can do even more than just communicate between frogs. Some species of frogs use their calls to control the sex of their offspring. That's right. Some frogs can decide whether or not they want to have sons or daughters, and they do it with their calls. It's still not clear exactly how this works, but it has to do with the frequency of the calls. Higher-pitched calls are more likely to produce daughters, while lower-pitched calls are more likely to produce sons. This allows the frogs to control the sex of their offspring, which can be beneficial in a number of ways. For example, if there are already a lot of females in the population, the frogs may choose to produce more males in order to increase the chances of finding a mate. Now let's move on to another fascinating fact about frogs. Frogs have thin, permeable skin. This means that they can absorb water and other substances through their skin, which is handy when they're in wet environments. However, it also means that frogs are very sensitive to changes in their environment. For example, frogs can be affected by changes in temperature, humidity, and pH levels. This sensitivity makes them useful as indicators of environmental change. By monitoring frogs, we can get an idea of how healthy an ecosystem is. Now let's take a closer look at the structure of a frog's skin. A frog's skin is made up of several layers. The outer layer is called the epidermis, and it's responsible for protecting the frog from the environment. The epidermis is made up of several layers of cells, and the outermost layer is constantly being shed and replaced. Under the epidermis is the dermis, which contains important structures such as blood vessels, nerves, and glands. The dermis is also responsible for producing the mucus that keeps a frog's skin moist. Finally, there is the subcutaneous layer, which is made up of fat cells that help to insulate the frog and protect its internal organs. The permeability of a frog's skin is due to the structure of its cells. Frog skin cells have thin, flexible membranes that allow water and other substances to pass through easily. This permeability is essential for frogs because it allows them to absorb water and oxygen through their skin. However, it also means that frogs are vulnerable to changes in their environment. For example, if a frog is exposed to a dry environment, it will quickly lose water and become dehydrated. Similarly, if a frog is exposed to a cold environment, it will lose heat and become cold. Frogs have evolved a number of adaptations to help them deal with the challenges of having thin, permeable skin. For example, frogs are typically found in moist environments, such as near ponds or streams. This helps to keep their skin moist and prevents them from drying out. In addition, frogs secrete a mucus that helps to prevent water loss and protect them from infection. Some frogs have also evolved thicker, more waterproof skin, which helps them to survive in drier environments. Despite these adaptations, frogs are still very sensitive to changes in their environment and are often used as indicators of environmental health. By monitoring frogs, we can get an idea of how healthy an ecosystem is and whether or not it's able to support a diverse array of species. So next time you see a frog, take a moment to appreciate its unique adaptations and the important role it plays in our world. Now let's move on to the next amazing fact about frogs. Frogs have a unique life cycle that involves several stages of development. The life cycle of a frog typically begins with the egg stage. Frogs lay their eggs in water, and the eggs are usually laid in masses called spawn. Each individual frog can lay hundreds or even thousands of eggs. The eggs are small and often spherical, and they're surrounded by a jelly-like substance that helps to protect them and keep them moist. Once the eggs are laid, they'll develop into tadpoles over the course of several days or weeks. Tadpoles are the larval stage of a frog's life cycle. They look like tiny salamanders with tails, and they're perfectly adapted for life in the water. Tadpoles use their tails to swim, and they breathe through gills located on the sides of their heads. They also have special structures called spiracles that allow them to take in oxygen through their skin. During this stage, tadpoles feed on algae and other aquatic vegetation, and they grow rapidly, increasing in size and developing adult-like features. As the tadpole grows, its hind legs begin to develop, first appearing as small buds that gradually grow larger. Once the hind legs are fully formed, the front legs begin to develop in a similar way. At the same time, the tail of the tadpole begins to shrink, and the head and body of the tadpole become more elongated, taking on a shape more closely resembling that of an adult frog. Eventually, the tadpole has developed all of the features of an adult frog, and it's ready to undergo metamorphosis and become a froglet. Metamorphosis is the process by which a tadpole transforms into a young frog, also known as a froglet. During this stage, the froglet develops lungs and begins to breathe air. Its digestive system also changes to allow it to digest solid food. The skin of the froglet becomes thicker and more waterproof, allowing it to live both on land and in water. As the froglet grows, it continues to develop the characteristics of an adult frog, and it eventually reaches sexual maturity and is able to reproduce. An adult frog, the final stage in the life cycle of a frog. Adult frogs are fully terrestrial creatures that live a variety of habitats around the world. They're typically well adapted to their environments, with features such as webbed feet for swimming, long legs for jumping, and sticky tongues for catching prey. Adult frogs typically feed on insects and other small animals, and they play an important role in the ecosystem by controlling populations of these animals. Frogs are also a food source for predators such as snakes, birds, and mammals. Adult frogs can live for several years, and they reach sexual maturity at around 1 year of age. Females typically produce eggs every year, and the life cycle begins anew. Frogs are fascinating creatures with many unique characteristics and adaptations. From their ability to jump great distances to their permeable skin, frogs are truly remarkable animals. Their life cycles involve several stages of development, from the egg stage to the tadpole stage, and finally, to the adult frog. Each stage is unique and fascinating in its own way. Frogs are also known for their ability to change the sex of their offspring, and this ability is controlled by the frequency of their calls. This allows them to control the sex ratio of their offspring and ensure that they have the best chance of survival. Overall, frogs are truly amazing creatures that are an important part of our natural world. Their unique adaptations and life cycles make them a fascinating subject of study, and they're sure to continue to amaze and surprise us for years to come. Thank you for watching. See you next time.